Story number 1, A Stranger's Cell Phone. Today, I was helping out my clueless brother again. I had to clean Dave's operating system of viruses and junk, and I had to clean up the mess he was making on his computer. Not that I was a system box expert. But compared to my brother, I was a genius. Unfortunately, his livelihood depended on these electronics. Also, what can you do? He was my little brother. Then the phone next to me rang, and without thinking of the consequences, I picked it up. "Is that you?" demanded the woman on the other end of the line. "Sure. Who else?" I answered, recognizing my wife Kim's voice. "My husband left a message that he would come to you this morning," she surprised me. "Is he there yet?" "Yes," I replied, grinning to myself and realizing that she thought she was to my brother. We don't look exactly alike, but there are similarities in some details, like our voices. "He's figuring out the computer." I continued fooling around. "Well, how long will it take?" she asked, which pleased me a little. I thought my wife was looking forward to my return to our happy family. "Do you have time for a quick visit?" Kim added, which made me less happy. "I don't think so," I mumbled. Her words took my breath away for some reason. "Come on, Dave," she grinned. "You haven't had me since last Tuesday." "Tuesday?" My world collapsed. I remembered I was on a business trip last Tuesday. "Don't pretend you've already forgotten everything, Dave," my wife giggled girlishly. "I was sore after you. I was so sore out there that I had to say no to Mike, and he didn't like it." "What excuse did you give him?" I asked, knowing exactly what her excuse was. "I told him I had a stomachache," Kim said, laughing at her ruse, and it was true. That kind of truth could give you a stroke. "Kim, call me back in 5 minutes. Mike wants something," I mumbled. My mind was a mess, and I didn't know what to do. I needed time to think before I exploded. "Okay, love," my wife replied, and I hung up the phone angrily. I sat down and took a deep breath, trying to calm down and comprehend what I had just discovered. Did this mean the end of my 5-year marriage? Definitely, yes. If my beloved wife is cheating on me with my dumbass brother, there's only one way out. In a fog of uncertainty, I pressed a few buttons on the keyboard almost without realizing what I was doing and looked at the screen in front of me in surprise. A disk formatting scroll bar was slowly crawling on it. After sitting in silence, I waited until my diversion was over and shut down the computer. Then I got up, opened the lid of the system, and pulled the cooler drive-on processor out of its slot and pressed the start button again. Pushing back my chair, I went looking for my brother with thoughts of murder on my mind. It wasn't until I was standing in front of him that I had a change of plan. "Dave," I said, trying to control my voice, "that was Kim on the phone, and she wants you to call her back immediately." "Why?" my brother asked. "I have no idea," I muttered, heading for his door. "I figured out your computer and I have to go." When he went into his office to call Kim back, I opened and then slammed the vestibule door shut, making him think I'd left. As always, without a word of thanks for the help on his part. Then I walked over and stood at the office door to listen to the conversation. It promised to be interesting. "Hi, Kim." I heard his voice. "Mike said you wanted to hear from me." I couldn't hear her side of the conversation, but I heard his perfectly. "What do you mean we just talked?" "We didn't talk. Mike just told me you wanted me to call." "No. I didn't talk to you." "So you did talk to Mike. What did you say to him? Is that what you told him?" "You stupid bitch. You stupid cow. How could you be so stupid?" he yelled. "And fuck you." He finished by slamming the phone down, at which point I pushed the door open and bumped into him. "Look, Mike," he muttered, "this is all a misunderstanding." Kim meant his words were cut short when my fist met his chin, and he collapsed against the opposite wall in a beautiful parabola. "By the way, Dave," I growled at him, "I just took down your computer." "God, no," he sobbed. "All my contacts, all my work, I'm gonna have to throw this one out, buy a new one and start over." "Surprise!" I shrieked. "I'll have to throw out my wife too." Find a new one and start over too. Story number 2. Cell phone call. I was driving down the I-220 freeway when my life changed. Actually, it would be more accurate to say my life flew up my ass at that moment. I had just given my wife a ride to work. She had taken her car to a car dealership the day before to have the clutch adjusted and was going to pick it up today on her lunch break. As we pulled onto I-25, my cell phone rang. I opened it, but it kept ringing. Damn it, it wasn't my phone. Candy's cell phone lying on the passenger seat was going off with a trill. I wasn't going to reach out to grab it while I was trying to cut through rush hour traffic, so it rang a few more times and then quieted down. Once I got onto I-25 and into the moving traffic, I calmly picked up that phone and opened it. The device beeped. You have one new voice message. I thought it might be something important and I should listen to it and then call Candy at work and tell her what the message was about. I pressed the button and put the phone to my ear. You have one unheard message. First unheard message. Hi, honey. It's me. I'm in room 114 at the Best Western Hotel on the boulevard. I have to leave the office at 3 and be in the room at 4. If you don't accept this offer for some reason, I'll call your office around 10. Take care, Candy, and know that I look forward to seeing you. End of message. To delete this message, press 7. Until it said, take care, Candy. I thought the person who spoke had the wrong number, but as soon as he said my wife's name, I realized my happy life had come to an end. I had a slight denial of the facts at first. I thought with naive hope that maybe there was another Candy out there somewhere who had a cell phone number similar to my wife's, but what were the odds? 10 million to 1? I closed Candy's cell phone and tossed it back on the seat. I drove the rest of the way on autopilot. I didn't think about driving, and I was lucky I didn't have an accident. Parking in the parking lot near work, I put someone else's phone on floor between the seat and the door in case Candy came looking for it after receiving the mystery man's call. He would call around 10 o'clock. What I really wanted to do was throw the damn thing on the ground and stomp it to pieces. The modern version of killing a messenger, bringing bad news. But he just slammed the door and went to work. I met Candy at a party thrown by members of a group I once helped. Andy, the leader of this big band, had been in contact with me lately. He and some friends had a purely garage band with an appropriate repertoire. I had never heard them play until today and had no idea if they were good or not. I had just spent quite a bit of time at the local watering hole and knew the owner well. His bar had a pretty big dance floor, and on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, Harry's had live music. I was sitting in this joint one day sipping a beer and trying for the millionth time to nudge Karen the bartender when I saw Harry come out from behind the bar with a scowl on his face. "What's up, Harry? You look like your dog died." "It's much worse than that. The band I invited to play this weekend called and cancelled because their drummer and their horist were in a car accident and are in the hospital. I've spent the last 2 hours trying to find a replacement band and have found nothing. All of them are already booked for this weekend. How desperate are you?" "Right now, I'd settle for 3 monkeys hitting tambourines." "I can help. Give me a quarter." Harry told Karen to give me a quarter from the register. I fed it to the pay phone and called Andy. He came over and talked to Harry, and that weekend, the Unknown Four made their public debut. It turned out they were pretty damn good, and Harry signed them for the next 3 months. From then on, I never had to pay for a second drink when I was in that bar. The band started calling me their manager, even though I had done nothing for them, but introduced Harry and Andy. Anyway, one Sunday, the band threw a party to celebrate their move to big time, and I was invited. I was leaning against the wall, sipping a beer, and watch Andy's girlfriend tried to fall out of her bra when someone's voice said, "I hear you're responsible for this group." I turned around and saw an absolutely stunning woman, about 5 feet tall, brown hair, brown eyes, and a body capable of inducing a monumental boner. She held out her hand and said, "Candy Whitsock, and you are?" "Rob Dahlman," I said, and shook her outstretched hand. "Well, admit it, Is it true we have you to thank for this party? I don't think so. I made a phone call and connected 2 people, and that's not even a quarter of the credit. But, everyone in the band gives you credit. You know everyone in the band? The drummer is my cousin. I noticed she didn't have a ring on her left hand, and I was just totally free until Friday, so I wanted to take her out to dinner one night, but 2 women came up to her and dragged her away into the dance crowd. Every time I saw her during the party, she was always with the group, and I never got a chance to talk to her again. 2 weeks later on a Thursday night, I was sitting at the bar trying again for the millionth time to tease Karen while Andy's band played Long Cool and in a black dress in the background. I was having my usual lack of luck with Karen when someone grabbed my arm and started pulling me off my chair. I looked over and saw it was Candy. "Come on. Get up, lazy ass," she said. "You can't sit on a stool when a girl needs a dance partner." So we went out on the dance floor. I'm not much of a dancer, but she was great, and it made me look decent too. I was ready to go back to my bar stool when the song ended, but the band moved on to Bowie's Suffragette City and Candy clung to me like a tick. So I couldn't leave the room. Dancing with Candy, I wondered why no one was accompanying her. In theory, she should have just fought off the guys with a stick. It didn't make any sense that she came alone to the dance. Looking at her, I marveled at my recklessness in imagining that I had the right to ask her out. Then at the party she was clearly out of my league. Okay. It was time for a revelation. I was not Brad Pitt. I was at least 10 pounds overweight and my brown hair was flexed with gray and beginning to show baldness. Not knowing Candy's age, I guessed I was at least 15 years older than her. The song ended, and before I could ask her where she was sitting to escort the lady to her table, the band started playing Nights in White Saturn. Candy came up to me again and asked, "One more, please." I took her hands and we began to slow dance. It wasn't a big surprise to me that I got in just from being around her. But it was a surprise when I, with this very erection, accidentally touched her leg, and she braced herself so the contact wouldn't break. I looked up at her. Ah, yes, I failed to mention that I am 32 and saw that she was looking at me with a smile on her face, having no idea what was going on. I was confused as hell. What was this sexy young creature doing trying to turn on an old man like me? The song ended, and she took me back to where she was sitting. It turned out to be a table where the wives and girlfriends of the band members were gathered. I held up a chair for her as she sat down and thanked her for dancing. As I started to turn to leave, she asked, "Where are you going?" "Back to the bar." "Oh, no, you're not just a customer." She pointed to the seat next to her and said, "You are part of this group, whether you agree with it or not, so you need to join us." "But I have." She pointed to the chair again and ordered sternly, "Sit down." Another woman at the table said, "You'd better do it. If you don't sit down, she'll just follow you around and pester you until you do what she asks." Well, I gave in and sat down next to Candy. Looking around for the waitress to ask her to get my drink from the bar, I found her standing behind me with my beer in her hand. "I don't think you're going back to the bar," she said. She looked around the table of seated women and added, "You might want something stronger than beer if you're going to hang out with these girls." "Don't worry about it," Candy said. "It's mine, and I'm not sharing it with anyone." The table erupted into hooting and hollering. Tina shifted her gaze from me to Candy and then back to me and shook her head in bewilderment. I thought to myself, what the hell is going on? Candy saw the look on my face and said, "I'll explain everything later." Candy leaned over and whispered in my ear, rubbing my waddy, "I'll explain everything when you take me home." Tina brought me another beer, and as I drank it, I pondered the situation. It was obvious that Candy was up to something against me, and frankly, I didn't know how to handle it. I had been involved with several women in my life, and among them were 2 ex-wives. But to say I was in demand would be an immodest exaggeration. I had to work hard to gain the favor of each of them. Lots of dates, phone calls, and sending cards and flowers. It took time and effort, but here and now, for the only time in my life, a woman took the initiative, and I didn't know what to do about it. What's more, I didn't know the reason for her activity. Why the hell not? I wasn't shaking with fear, but I wasn't engaged either. I danced a couple more times with Candy and a couple more times with the other women at the table. One of these women was Andy's girlfriend, Mary. As we moved around the dance floor, Mary said, "Candy seems really into you. I've never seen her act so bossy, so possessive before." Possessive? On me? Oh, don't. Are you telling me you haven't seen the look she's been throwing at the girls you've been dancing with? That doesn't make any sense. I've only seen her for the second time in my life tonight. Are you serious? Absolutely. The first time was at that party at your house 2 weeks ago, and I only talked to her for 2 or 3 minutes. That was until she pulled me off my bar stool a half hour ago. I don't know what happened in those 2 or 3 minutes, but it was something. For the last 2 weeks, she's been sucking Andy's information about you. The reason she came here tonight is because of you. Andy told her that you were more than likely going to be here. As I walked Mary back to the table, I was even more confused than before. What could I possibly have that would interest a very sexy lady, especially one who was obviously much younger than me? It's almost 10 o'clock. Candy said I should get home because tomorrow I have to get up with a clear head and go to work. She looked at me carefully and asked, "Are you ready to drive me home?" She was gorgeous and sexy, and even though I had no idea what was going on, I couldn't answer. No. Fastening her seat belt, Candy asked, "Do you believe in love at first sight?" I've never really given it much thought, but I know for a fact that it's never happened to me, although I think I've experienced lust at first sight a couple times. Why do you ask? Just curious. I've been extremely curious about what this is about too. What's the big deal? I'm sure you've noticed how far I've come where you're concerned. I had no idea what to say to that, so I just focused on driving. How? The passenger was indignant. Didn't you notice anything? Well, you see, when I saw you at the party, something happened to me. I can't explain it, but I knew I had to see you. I just did. That's all. I found out from Andy who you were, and then I came up to you. I didn't see the ring on your hand, but I couldn't believe some other woman wasn't claiming you, so I decided to find out as much about you as I could. I liked what I found out and I realized that I wanted you. Well, I looked at her questioningly. What? Can we go with you together next? I'm sorry, but you can't mean it. Oh, but okay. Alright. Now all I have to do is sell you on the idea. Am I right? When we got to her house, she reached over, turned off the ignition, and pulled my keys out of the lock. Come on, baby. She said as she got out of the car, we need to see how good a salesman I am. We spent 3 hours in her bedroom and to make a long story a little shorter she did manage to convince me of the rightness of her idea. We spent the next 2 years together, and then I finally made up my mind. Candy moved in with her belongings and her marriage certificate with me. The next 10 years were the happiest of my life. Candy and I had good jobs that we enjoyed and neither of us were in a hurry to quit those jobs, so we decided we didn't want children. To save Candy, the hassle of birth control pills, diaphragms, and the like, I had a vasectomy here, prostate cancer, and all that, but I took a chance. Candy and I excelled in our chosen professions and she eventually reached the position of regional manager with 17 offices across the state reporting to her. I rose through the ranks and became vice president of marketing. Both jobs involved travel, Candy's more mindless, but we didn't have to spend too much time apart. Life was going well. Until I had to hear this voicemail on Candy's phone. I didn't do much at work that morning. I just sat in my office and stared out the window thinking about a few things. Candy was 12 years younger than me. That age difference didn't mean much when I was 32 and Candy was 20, but it did mean something when I was 46 and she was 34. I liked sex and candy and I had a pretty good intimate life, but the older I got, the less I thought about it. Twice a week was fine for me, but Candy had a much stronger sex drive than I did. And frankly, I couldn't keep up with her, Sometimes my ability to keep up with her frustrated Candy and sometimes even cause scandals. I'm a realist and was well aware that the problem would only get worse as I got older. That said, I'm one of those people who believes that you can have sex without love. Just like you can have love without sex, and I believe that sex is as much a need as food and water. I prayed that the day would never come when I couldn't achieve tension at all. But I had to admit, Candy would always want more than I could give her. I loved her, and I didn't want to lose her. I don't know if her sex drive drove her to seek a little extra outside the house, but that possibility did exist. And if I ever found out about it, our marriage would be over. Candy was well aware of my position on infidelity. Both of my ex-wives had been caught cheating, and it had caused them to leave me at my urging. Candy and I were making love one night, and I couldn't scratch her kitty for the third time. She started whining that she was left hanging. That's when I told her, maybe you need to find a lover to help you. Oh, yes. That's right, then I could join your other 2 ex-wives on the sidewalk. You don't have to. She looked at me confused. What do you mean? 2 of my exes were thrown to the curb because they tried to do everything behind my back. Janet picked up guys in bars and abused them in the back seats of their cars. Mary was satisfying her elderly boss's perverted sexual needs so she could get constant raises and promotions. I smacked a crouched Ken on the top of her head. They both stabbed me in the back, and that was totally unacceptable to me. I can't live a lie when I'm being cheated on sneakily, but that's not gonna happen here with us. If I know about it, I'll condescend to your little weakness. You know my position. Sex is a physical need. It's as much a requirement for good health as eating and drinking, and I'm obviously not giving you what you need. What can you do? It's and I am quite frankly willing to let you fulfill needs when you need it. Provided you're honest with me and give me advanced notice, I mean, as long as you follow certain rules, I'm willing to accept your adultery. Okay. Wait a minute. What is that? Is that a guideline? Well, think of it as an agreement. There are just a few simple rules to follow. 1. Never do this in our house. 2. Never deal with the same man for more than 30 days, thus reducing the likelihood of emotional attachments. 3. I don't want to watch or even hear about anything you do together. 4th, I would never want to know who your lover. She looked at my wrinkled face and corrected herself. A boyfriend. Yes. Let's call him that. And lastly, I insist that you never come to my house after a night out without showering, wiping, or brushing your teeth. The only thing I need to know is that you're going to do it. Calling me and telling me you're coming home late because you have a date is all I need to know. If you have a date tonight, I'd like you to let me know ahead of time. I don't want to be in the house. I don't want to see you dressed for a date. And most importantly, information about the place and time of the meeting. You're gonna spy on me. Kiss me on the nose, Candy. Kenny, I wanna know that you're safe, and if something bad happens, for example, you run into an inappropriate man, I'd like to be able to save you. You know, darling, having sex on the side is a dangerous thing to do. You ask your secret partner to wear a condom. He'll take it as an insult. There's all kinds of creeps out there. You look at him. He seems normal, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll find a scumbag that makes your hair stand on end. You're taking this very seriously, aren't you? Are you? Yeah. I'm dead serious. I obviously can't give you what you need sexually, and that's causing us problems. I can see those problems getting worse as I get older. I love you, and I don't want to lose you, so here's a solution. Candy looked at me, sadly. No. I'm not going to do that. Absolutely not. Okay. Okay. Mind. All I'm asking for is honesty. I appreciate that you love me enough to suggest that I do something like this, but I can't. I just can't. Honey, you can't go 2 days without trying to get me into the bedroom. I know damn well you must be in pain when you're out of town for a week or 2 on a trip. In hotel lounges, you go out for a glass or 2 after work, and I know you're being hit on with offers. Well, I'm not a boy. All I'm saying is that you have permission to have a bed if you find someone you think is worthy to want it, just don't keep it from me. We cuddled again for a while. I'll make it even easier for you. All you have to do is tell me that you've decided to accept my offer as long as it's honest and open, no hiding or lying. It doesn't matter, Rob. I would never do that, and as far as I knew, until I listened to that voicemail, she wasn't going to. At 10:30, I got a call from Candy. First, she asked me if she'd left her cell phone in the car and I told her I didn't know. And the last time I saw it, it was on the kitchen table with the charger plugged in. You probably just forgot about it. I guess I did. While you're on the phone, I might be a little late tonight. The boss wants everyone to attend a short meeting about expense reports and a few other things, so I have to take care of myself as far as dinner is concerned. There are plenty of leftovers in the fridge and a few quick dinners in the freezer. I'll try not to be late. I love you, baby. You're very sweet, my fish. At 3:45, I parked in the IHOP parking lot across the street from the Best Western Hotel. I had a good view of the door to room 114, and I settled in to wait. At 4:25, a man came to the door of room 114, inserted his key in the door and entered. I recognized him. He was hanging out at one of Candy's office Christmas parties. His name was Dave Maxim, and he was the manager of one of the offices in Kennedy's neighborhood. At 5:15, a familiar Chevy Tahoe pulled up in front of license plate 114. Candy went to the door and knocked. The door opened and she stepped inside. I watched the door until 6 and then drove home. It was 5 minutes past 8 when Candy returned. I was in the kitchen drinking a beer and doing a crossword puzzle from the evening paper when she walked in. "Hi, honey," she said and leaned over to kiss me. I turned my head so that instead of lips, she got my cheek. She pulled back and said, "What's wrong?" "I don't know, Candy." "Why don't you tell me what happened?" "Tell you what?" "I don't know." "What do you think you should tell me?" "How many beers have you had, Rob?" "You're not making any sense. I'm still waiting for you to tell me something. Something very important. Something important to both of us. What do you want me to say, Rob? What do you want me to tell you?" "Not long ago, I had a conversation with you about our love life. I specifically said, no lying and no hiding. Do you remember that little conversation?" She looked at me for a few seconds, and then I saw her eyes harden. "What is it, Rob? Are you accusing me of something?" "So is there anything to accuse you of?" "Of course not. You were late because of the meeting your boss called." "That's right. So you're not the one I saw entering room 114 at the Best Western today. Is this just a figment of my sick imagination?" I pulled her cell phone out of my pocket, set it to speaker and pressed the buttons to play her voicemail. The first missed message. "Hi, honey. It's me. I'm in room 104 at the Best Western Hotel on Boulevard." The message unfolded and Candy stood there with a pale face. "No lying or hiding. I thought I explained it clearly enough. You could do whatever you wanted to do. The only thing I asked was to be honest. Anything else would cheating, and you know my position on that." Candy stared at me in silence for a few seconds. Then I saw tears come to her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Rob. I just couldn't bring myself to tell you. It would be like me telling you that you're not man enough for me, and I just couldn't do that to you." I looked at her with a stony expression on my face. She sobbed softly and said, "I'm going to go pack." "Yes. That would probably be best," I replied. When she left the room, I sipped my beer and went back to doing the crossword puzzle. I did it in ink and some of the words smudged as my tears dripped on them.